So this year we've had Caleb Landry Jones as a magnetic Dracula. We've had Christopher Abbott as a ferocious Wolfman. We've had Bill Skarsgård as a weirdly attractive Count Orlok. And now we have Jacob Elordi as Frankenstein's monster. It's a great year if you've got a monster fetish, right? Like if you've uttered the words, "But Daddy, I love him," ever, you're probably having a stellar year. And this, to be fair, this movie would make a fantastic double bill with Luc Besson's Dracula: A Love Tale, because both are weirdly fucked up, both are strangely sweet, both are emotionally devastating, and both have fantastic Christoph Waltz performances. Frankenstein is like the ultimate deadbeat dad story, and that's really ironic because, like a lot of horror lovers, Guillermo Del Toro is one of my favorite directors because he's like a wholesome horror dad. Like, that is the vibe he gives off, and he loves his monsters, right? You can tell he loves his monsters, and he loves them in this one. Hellboy, Shape of Water, Kronos, right? These are all stories about how that make you sympathize with the monster, or the monster's just like the flat out good guy of the film. It's the same in this one, right? Del Toro has stated that he's a huge fan of Mary Shelley's original novel. It is the movie that he wants to make the most out of any movie in his career. He's always wanted to make a Frankenstein movie. He stated that Frankenstein's monster is the creature he most sympathizes with in horror. So I was really, really excited to cover this one, and I really enjoyed it. I think it's fucking fantastic. So, as always, let's dive in, spoiler free. Welcome to Spooky Nights. Frankenstein starts with us meeting a Danish ship that is on an Arctic expedition. The ship is currently trapped in ice, and as the crew try to dislodge the ship, they find a man who is severely injured. They bring that man aboard the ship to try and assist him, and are almost immediately set upon by a large creature with superhuman strength. After they repel the creature, the injured man, a baron named Victor Frankenstein, played by Oscar Isaacs, regales the captain with tales of who the creature is, why he's pissed off, how the creature came to be, and from there we basically get the entire story of Victor Frankenstein and Frankenstein's monster, from the good doctor's expulsion from medical school all the way up until he basically became a piece of human origami on the Arctic ice. If you are especially empathetic to like plights of the vulnerable or stories about misfits, you may want to pack a clean box of Kleenex for this one. If you're a huge fan of Jacob Elordi, you also may want to pack a huge box of Kleenex for this one, maybe for other reasons. This is just it's a heartbreaking and good film. I really enjoyed this one. Now, I will admit, I haven't read Mary Shelley's Frankenstein since high school. While I appreciate the fuck out of her genius, and I really love what she's done for horror and literature, and she is a historical figure in the field of horror and literature, due to the age of the book and the language type used and stuff, I haven't had a big desire to go back to it without like a pressing book report chewing down my calendar. That being said, from what I remember from the book and what I've been able to piece together online, this feels like a pretty accurate retelling, right? Like, this feels pretty on point. I feel like it strikes a good balance. It's always hard when you try to adapt a book to a movie, because if you make it word for word like the book, you're not giving book readers any surprise or anything to revel in. You're sort of taking away a bit of the theater of the mind. If you change it completely, so it's nothing near the book, you're taking a IP that people really love and making it something that it's not. So it's a really hard balance to strike, and I think this one did it beautifully. There are lots of parts of this that you don't see in other, like the Arctic expedition. I can't remember being in a lot of the Frankenstein adaptations that I've seen, and that's in the book, right? That's where it starts. It does start with the captain's retelling, and then it goes into Victor's retelling. I think what this movie does better than any adaptation I have seen so far on film is it nails the themes of Mary Shelley's original novel, right? Like, Mary Shelley's original story, like, Victor is not the hero, right? He is the personification of like manic obsession through and through, and ambition. Like, he's obsessed. He's a man obsessed. And this movie nails that, right? By the end of the movie, you are seeing his chickens come home to roost, and it's heartbreaking and satisfying in ways, right? He's not the hero of this story. Mary Shelley's original also had a lot to say about the responsibility of the person who has created life, which is basically parenting, right? That is one of the major themes. Like, if you've created this life, how much responsibility do you have for that life you've created? How much responsibility for the care do you have to the life you've created? This movie fucking nails that, right? I said it before, and Frankenstein's the ultimate deadbeat dad story. And it's about perpetuating cycles of rage between like father and son. This movie fucking nails that. There are scenes in this movie that are reminiscent of like something like Once Were Warriors or There Will Be Blood, right? Just a dad being a piece of shit to his son, and his son having all this pent up baggage and rage like this. That is portrayed wonderfully in this movie. Oscar Isaacs plays crazy and obsessed really well. He did it in Ex Machina. He does a bit in Moon Knight. He fucking nails it again here. He's really, really good. And there are scenes of intense vulnerability from the monster, and you empathize with him so much. It feels like someone's kicking Forrest Gump in this movie, you know? There are scenes where you're like, oh my God, don't you touch him. And that's what you want from a Frankenstein movie. At least that's what I wanted from it. There is also a lot of isolation for the monster in this movie, right? Growing up in a big tower, in a secluded location, only to get out into the world and realize you're an other and people hate you for that. You know, it's a really sad story of isolation and neglect, and it's wonderfully displayed here. It's just they use these giant wide shots of the monster ambling, often injured, through fields, forests, tundras, you know. And it's really clever because it's very hard to make someone like Jacob Elordi, who's quite physically imposing, seem small. But the shots in this they're so big. He takes up such a small amount of real estate that he feels like a little baby. Someone call Tay-Tay, because he's a sexy baby and he's also a monster on a hill, which sort of makes me think, like, is Anti-Hero written about Frankenstein's? Like, what the fuck is Taylor Swift a Frankenstein fan? Anyway, I don't know. Someone answer that if you know. She might be a horror fan. It's really interesting, and there is a scene where there are a couple of scenes where he interacts with an older gentleman, and it's so heartwarming, and it's fucking peak Del Toro. It's the befriending of the monster. It's the Shape of Water. It's the fawn and Ophelia and Pan's Labyrinth. You know, like, it is very much that vibe. Jacob Elordi is amazing, and he has to run the gambit of like really vulnerable, new to the world person to, frankly, by the end of it, a killing machine. You know, that's what he does really well in this. Mia Goth's fantastic. It's weird seeing her in a movie like this because she sort of feels like she just fits. She's already got the voice of like a 19th century Victorian fucking ghost. Like, I'm like, you feel like you're at home here, Mia. When you see her for the first time, I did have a little giggle because I was like, this is exactly the sort of shit I thought you'd be wearing in this movie. The costuming, the sets, the practical effects and gore are all top notch. The monster is awesome. He looks like an old, like, his head sort of looks like an old, is it phrenology? You know, the bits with all the parts of the brain from like the old Victorian eras. That's how it feels. Like, it's smooth, but it's got like segmented bits. The design is just wonderful. There's lots of scenes of autopsies and surgical gore, so do know that going in. And they look realistic as shit. Del Toro really does that sort of stuff really well. The world is beautiful. This is the best Victor's Lab has ever looked on screen, I think. It's got there's lots of cogs, there's lots of levers, there's lots of lightning and ticking clocks and all that sort of shit. It's very steampunky, which, as we know from Del Toro, that's like his favorite thing. It's very Hellboy in the Golden Army, which I personally love. There's just something about that Victorian glass greenhouse feel that I just adore. It makes me want to like pour myself a whiskey and sit down in a recliner and like sketch in a notebook. And I can't draw much more than a fucking stick figure, but it just gives me that vibe. And I loved the aesthetics and the vibe of this movie. The only thing I didn't love about this movie is that there seems to be a bit more of a reliance on CGI than I'm used to with Del Toro. I'm all for using CGI in place of like real animals and stuff, because it spares them the stress of having to go onto set and do all that shenanigans. But there was some monster stuff in this movie that I thought they would have opted to use practical effects for, considering that's what like Del Toro's perfect at. He loves crafting monsters. He loves it. And I thought, that would be sick. But they opted for CGI in some of those bits, and I was like, well, why, man? Especially the CGI looked a bit Crimson Peaky, which is a bit of a bummer. Also, the last 20 minutes did feel a little bit rushed for me, and that's not a bad thing per se, but they spent so much time building up the tale from Victor's point of view and then the monster's point of view. I would have loved a bit of breathing room to just see where it ended up, and just in that last, probably 20 minutes, like extend that. I could have easily watched this movie for over 3 hours. I know that sounds crazy, but like I was in from scene one. I think this has such a fucking solid intro. I love this movie. I think it's really good. I was in instantly. I love the vibe of it. I love the pacing. I love all that. And it just felt like the end needed a bit more breathing room. But other than that, this is probably my favorite on-film portrayal of the Frankenstein story. I know lots of people love Karloff's version. I like that version too. But I sympathize with the monster more, and that's probably because it speaks in this one. Like it's a bit more human. You get to see it evolve and adapt and all that sort of stuff. So I felt so much more drawn to the monster. It was such a more tragic figure to me. I would skip this if you have a thing for monsters. If you see this movie, you're probably not going to be beating any monster kink allegations, right? Jacob Elordi, he's a very attractive man. He's weirdly attractive in this. I was like, how the fuck are you? You're like dead people stitched together. How are you making that look good, man? It's unfair genetic lottery, that motherfucker. If you love the Mary Shelley story, I do think this is probably the most accurate portrayal. I don't know what other reviewers have thought. I try not to watch other reviewers before I do my own, because I don't want it to like taint what I think of the movie. But I am interested to see what other people thought of this, because I thought this felt pretty accurate to me from what I remember. From 12 years ago when I was in high school. If you love Del Toro, this is fucking so Del Toro. This has so much love for the monster. It's sweet. It's heartfelt. It's also absolutely heartbreaking. Everything you love in Del Toro, he does wonderfully here. I would skip this if you want a short film. This is 2.5 hours long. I could have had it longer, honestly. I loved it so much. But this is a 2.5 hour movie. I didn't feel the runtime because Del Toro crafts such beautiful worlds, but it is a long film. If you hate surgical gore, there's a lot of autopsies in this. There's a lot of organs being ripped out and harvested and stitched together, and you see it all. And it does look realistic. So know that going in, if that is a trigger for you, maybe skip this one. So if you're looking for an interesting take on this story, I highly recommend The Angry Black Girl and Her Monster. It's set in the projects and follows 17-year-old science wizard Vic, who lives in a neighborhood that is just rife with like violence and drugs and, gangs. And she's recently lost her mother and her older brother. After a really tough day, she just fucking snaps and decides that she's going to resurrect her brother from the grave, Frankenstein style. It goes poorly, as most Frankenstein movies do. This is a really good movie. It is low budget and it is an indie film, but I loved the fucking heart in it. And I also, if you love movies that take an old movie and adapt it into a modern setting, like, Baz Luhrmann's like Romeo and Juliet, that sort of vibe, this is a movie that I think does it really well. Another movie it's a great monster franchise that has had a recent modern entry is the Godzilla franchise, right? Godzilla -1 is so fucking good. It came out 2 years ago, I think now. And it brings the humanity back to Godzilla. It's set after World War II with a disgraced kamikaze pilot named Ryu, who returns home. He basically has nothing. He has no living family. And he enters this sort of forced domesticity with a woman named Nori and a baby named Akiko. He's taken a job basically clearing old sea mines from the bay around Tokyo. And when he's out there, he and his crew run into an atomic monster of monstrous proportions, right? Like, that is what this movie is about. It is sweet. It is kind of wholesome. It's also fucking heartbreaking. It makes Godzilla scary again. It is, to the Godzilla franchise, what I think Del Toro's movie is to the Frankenstein story. I think they're very kindred spirits in that. They're both fucking wonderful films. All right, that is it. Let me know if you've seen this one and what you thought of it. I hope people like this film. I really liked it. So my top tier rankings for Del Toro movies would probably be Pan's Labyrinth's my number one. Hellboy, the Hellboy series would be up there. Blade 2, Shape of Water. They're probably my favorites. This is just behind them with Crimson Peak. Like, it's Frankenstein and Crimson Peak just behind them. And then you've got stuff like Nightmare Alley, Mimic, Kronos behind that. And then you've got Pinocchio way the fuck down there, because I did not like Pinocchio. He's fucking annoying. He's an annoying character, and I did not feel for him at all. Come on, Pinocchio, you annoyance. But I know everyone loved Pinocchio, so I know I'm in the minority for that. Let me know how it sits in your Del Toro rankings. I fucking love this man, and I think this is just a wonderful entry. Hopefully I'll see you next week for another review. Peace.